I was recently speaking with an old acquaintance who grew up in South Asia. We were discussing a controversial decision in his home country, one that granted extraordinary protections to the military leadership, shielding them from legal accountability. He paused, then smiled wryly. "At least we're learning from you," he said. "Hasn't America just shown the world how to concentrate power at the very top?" It was meant as a joke, but it landed uncomfortably close to the truth. For much of modern history, the United States prided itself on exporting democratic restraint. Today, it may be exporting something else entirely, an executive untethered from meaningful limits. If the architects of the American system were alive today, it is not social media or artificial intelligence that would astonish them most. It would be the presidency itself. The Constitution was deliberately engineered to scatter authority. Power, the founders believed, was dangerous when gathered too tightly in one place. They were rebelling not just against a king, but against the very idea that one individual could embody the state. The executive they envisioned was modest, an administrator, not a ruler. The president was meant to carry out the law, not redefine it. Real power, especially the power over money, war, and national priorities, was placed squarely in the hands of Congress. Even those founders most sympathetic to energetic leadership drew sharp boundaries. The American president, they emphasized, was not a monarch. He served briefly, could be removed, and remained subject to punishment. Foreign entanglements, military expansion, and national commitments were deliberately fenced off, precisely because ambition and corruption were perennial risks. And yet, over time, the system began to warp. Global conflicts, economic emergencies, and a media environment fixated on a single national figure steadily shifted attention and authority towards the White House. Each crisis justified a temporary expansion, but temporary measures have a habit of becoming permanent. By the late 20th century, the imbalance was undeniable. Congress attempted to reassert itself through oversight, watchdog institutions, and legal safeguards. But laws are only as strong as the will to enforce them. And again, that will improve fear accelerated the process. Presidents were granted extraordinary latitude in the name of security, often beyond the reach of meaningful review. What had once been exceptions hardened into precedent. Still, informal guardrails survived. Norms mattered. Presidents respected the independence of prosecutors. They disclosed their finances. They accepted that certain powers were inappropriate, even if technically available. Those norms, it turns out, were fragile. In recent years, they have been openly dismantled, sometimes ignored, sometimes challenged, and now increasingly endorsed by the courts. A once obscure legal theory has moved to the center of constitutional interpretation, the idea that the executive branch answers only to the president, regardless of congressional intent. Under this view, oversight becomes optional. Accountability becomes conditional, and legality bends around power rather than constraining it. This evolution reached a critical point in a recent Supreme Court ruling, which effectively placed the president beyond criminal reach for a broad range of official actions. The dissent warned of the obvious danger that legality could become a shield for abuse, so long as it passed through the formal machinery of office. What began as a restrained constitutional role has transformed into something far more dominant, commanding attention, shaping reality, and overshadowing the very institutions designed to balance it. This is not the result of one individual alone. It reflects a deeper failure, of legislative resolve, of institutional courage, and of judicial humility. The irony is striking. The branch of government once considered primary has become the weakest, and the institution meant to interpret the law risks becoming an enabler rather than a guardian. America now approaches a historic anniversary amid profound division. Citizens no longer merely disagree on policies, they inhabit different realities. Facts themselves are contested. At moments like this, it is worth returning to first principles. The nation's founding promise was never a declaration of achievement. It was a declaration of intent, an aspiration rooted not in perfection, but in continual striving. Those famous words were carefully chosen, debated, revised. They balanced faith and reason, morality and pragmatism. They spoke not of guaranteed outcomes, but of a shared direction. The pursuit they described was not simple pleasure or comfort. It was fulfillment, defined anew by each generation. The danger today is not that America has fallen short of that promise. It always has. The danger is forgetting that the promise requires effort, restraint, and renewal. Without them, power hardens, institutions hollow out, and a system designed to resist tyranny begins quietly to resemble it.